Hello, my friend, and welcome to the Wednesday night satsang. Mm, People have written to me and were concerned why I didn't show up for the regular um, Sunday afternoon silent meditation, silent transmission that I do, and I'm grateful, for asking about that, and I'll tell you the reason why. Um, Saturday night, this body got a respiratory virus, which was quite intense. So coughing um, was continuous. Every single breath that was taken created a coughing fit, and that went on for 4 days up until yesterday. So it was exhausting. And also, it made it impossible to sleep because the coughing just was continuous the whole time. So it was very draining physically, and plus there was a very high fever. And because I don't use any kind of medication or any pharmaceutical things or Western medicine at all, when I have a fever, I have a fever. I don't do anything about it. And likewise, I think there's things like cough suppressants and things like that, medicine, but I don't use those kinds of things or anything like that. Just water and trying to rest. The problem was without sleeping, it got very intense, and the fever got quite intense. And yeah, so that's why I didn't show up on Sunday. And I'm just in the process of recovering, and I thought I would try and do the Wednesday night satsang, and the coughing has gone far down. The fever has mostly broken, and I'm still just on water, so it's there's not a lot of fuel in the engine of the body since I've been on water since Saturday night, or actually all of Saturday. Yeah, and the the thing about whatever happens in life is if we don't learn from every experience we have in life, what's the point? If we don't learn from every experience that we have in this life, what's the point of it? And some people say, well, it's to have the experience. No, that's not it. That would be a Disneyland ride. A Disneyland ride or a roller coaster ride is to have the experience. Life is not just for having the experience, it's from learning what this experience is here to teach us. So everything is a lesson for us. And the lesson of going through this physical illness for the past 4 days is a lesson, of course, for me. It's just, growing on me to what it is. And because there's not a lot of fuel in the engine since it's just been water all this time, yeah, the mind doesn't really understand it yet. But it might. It understands some things. And what it understands is about awakening, really. In this life, really, what else is there? What else is there but awakening? Everything else that we think is important in our life is just a dream. When you're asleep, many things can be important in your dream, right? You can get married, you can become president of the United States, you can win a famous award, you can be chased by a monster, you can be locked in a dungeon, you can climb Mount Everest. All kinds of things are possible in your dreams. But when you wake up, they're just a dream. They're not important anymore. Maybe for at least part of the day, you remember, I had this weird dream, and you go and tell people at work about the dream. But the next day, it's gone. None of it was important, really. It was just a dream. And that's also your life. Until you wake up, the whole thing, that's your life. All your successes, all your failures, all your relationships, it's all a dream. How important really is it? The only really, truly important thing in this life is to wake up. And so this is what we learn. If we want to learn something from our life, we need to learn what's important. If we learn how to get a better job, or how to fix our relationship, or how to get a new relationship, or how to meet somebody that we're attracted to, this is all a dream. It's not really much of a lesson. We're just learning things in a dream. We're rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. It's not really doing anything. What we need to do is wake up. And fortunately, everything in our life is teaching us to wake up. That's the good news. Everything in our life is teaching us to wake up. Everything is acting for our awakening and helping us awaken. That we're not awake is because we're not paying attention. We're not paying attention. We're listening to our dream, and we're putting our dream over life itself. So ordinarily, if someone gets, the flu or gets sick the way I did, they think this is a terrible thing. And it's highly unpleasant. I'm not going to deny that. I'm not going to deny that it's highly unpleasant. But it's here for our learning. It's not something that's just made to make our life miserable. It's here for our benefit. Even though it may not feel like it, and our mind may say it's not, ignore the mind. That's what's keeping you in the dream. What is life giving you in this moment? I know many people have health issues and things, and write to me and talk to me about having different kinds of health issues. I understand this. And part of it is my experience of this. I'm usually very healthy, so my experience of this is I learn what this is like for you when the body is totally out of control and non-functioning, almost to the point of complete non-functioning, which would be death. But non-functioning just to the point of this, right? If you have a hound dog, and from its time it's a pup, it's learned to chase foxes, right? So it's really, really good at this. And then it gets older and it can't walk anymore. It can't even bark. And it gets the scent of a fox around the chicken coop, and what happens is its nose twitches. It's not going to catch many foxes like that. The body is not functioning the way it's supposed to anymore. Nose twitching is not enough. It needs to stand up and run and bark and chase the fox away. And the illness of 4 days that I had, my body was pretty weak. It was very, very weak. It could barely lift its head off the pillow. It got so weak after a while. The fever, the constant coughing, it just completely drained it. And it reminded me of a time 20 years ago when I had a near-death experience, my first near-death experience. I'd had an operation for cancer, and the operation, whatever they did, they didn't do something right because it was terribly infected. It just got really, really infected, and I was home. They don't keep you in the hospital long at all. And so I was home, and every day it got worse. Every day I had a catheter and the bag that I was supposed to empty. They never told me how to do it, but I could see that I figured it out. But eventually that was it was filled with pus and blood, and it was not good. And I was getting progressively weaker and weaker as the days went on. And at some point, I was so weak that I could not lift my head off the pillow. I could not lift my hand up. I couldn't even do it. It was just like I was almost where the body would be comatose. It was not functioning really almost at all. I was still breathing, heart was still beating, but other than that, it wasn't really functioning. And at some point, I knew that I was dying. I knew that this was dying, and I didn't have the energy to fight it. It wasn't that I, purposely through my great surrendering ability, which I didn't have at that time, would let go, but I had no choice because I just didn't have the energy to fight it. So I willingly let go into death, and I did, and I did have a near-death experience at that time. It was beautiful, as everyone who's had a near-death experience will tell you. This is a profound, profound peace, profound freedom. It's a wonderful experience to have, and I think it had, certainly along with many other things, a great deal to do with my awakening, my eventual awakening. And I woke up the next morning and the infection had stopped. It wasn't pus and blood. It was, I was coming back to health. But I needed to have that experience of dying. I needed to have the experience of dying, and I needed to have the experience of what surrender is, of what true and total surrender is. And that says something about awakening, why we awaken and why we don't. Because I truly and utterly surrendered all my life and everything in that moment, and I died. Not just in a metaphorical way, but I physically died. I guess if they had had me hooked up to instruments still, they would probably register that my heart had stopped and things like that, because it wasn't a dream. It was very different. The near-death experience is not like anything that we've had before. And this is surrender. It's complete surrender. So from that experience, I learned that complete and absolute surrender is not what we think it is. We think it's a bad thing. We want to resist surrendering in this complete and absolute way, surrendering our entire life. But instead, it's wonderful. Because I had this experience of a near-death experience, how else could I have had it? And this was the most wonderful experience that I've ever had up until that time. Well, awakening when I was 22 was also very powerful, and also was a surrendering. And this illness that I had now reminded me of that too, because I didn't mention this most of the time. I sort of forgot about it. But when I was 22, one of the things that happened that went along with those 10 days where I was truly awake was that I had walking pneumonia. I was only 22. I was very healthy. But before I went down to Florida, I went to a doctor and he said, "You've got pneumonia, but it's walking pneumonia, meaning you're not just lying in bed. You can get out of bed. You can raise your head. You have the strength to walk. But other than that, you've got pneumonia." So I went down in that state of a weakened physical condition. And part of that weakened physical condition helped me wake up, because I didn't have the strength to fight it. I didn't have the strength to keep creating this character of me, of this dream, of this angry young man. I didn't have the strength to keep that going, and all my opinions and what I thought was true and wasn't true, and what I thought of other people and all my judgments. I just really didn't have the strength to keep all of that going, plus the other things that I was going through at the same time. It was just a bit too much for me. And so in letting go of that, that helped me, gave me an avenue to have this great experience of awakening and freedom, just as the near-death experience does. So that has to do with surrender. We think that surrender is a negative thing. We've been trained, do not give up. If you're a male and you're playing, on a football team or whatever team, fight to the end. Do not give up. Never give up. If you're a martial artist or you do boxing, win at any cost. You need to go in there and win. and defeat the other people. And in our competitive Western society, it's all this: don't give up, keep striving, keep pushing, keep doing this, but don't give up. So giving up, surrendering, has a bad name in our dream world, in our illusion. And it's one of the reasons that so few people ever wake up, because it takes complete surrender. And we don't want to complete surrender. Now, one of the things I learned from this experience, other than that which is very important for you, is that because of this constant coughing with every breath, just this constant spasmodic, uncontrolled coughing that was happening 24 hours a day for 4 days, my attention was drawn to this. After a while, it just wore down my attention to be on this unlimited freedom and limitless, infinite formlessness that is my normal experience. It took attention away from that and brought it into this limited, single, coughing body and the coughing. You know, it wasn't that I re-identified with the body. I didn't. You know, but it was like I wasn't aware of this greater consciousness that was aware of all this, that's always aware of all this. I lost my attention on that. Even though it's always here, my attention moved from that. And that was the most unpleasant part of the whole experience. Not the pain of the constant coughing or the fever or the aches and the you know, the weakness and all that. Not that. But the attention removed from what's real. The attention moved away from the totality of what is, and focused on this very limited aspect of it, such as a physical body. And the coughing. It was extremely limited and boring. You know, I mean, a limited body is a very boring thing. You know, when you experience the unlimited and the infinite, it's wonderful and free, and this is where all our peace, love, and bliss comes from. Our true nature. To have attention move away from true nature into this limited body. That's unpleasant. Very unpleasant. And ordinarily, when the body has been sick before, hasn't been quite this sick before, but it has had close experiences of this level of sickness or pain. And the attention remained on presence. Always remained on presence. Maybe not 75% the way it mostly is, but maybe 50%, or at least 40%. It was still in attention all the time. And this time, because of the continuous coughing, attention managed to be sucked into just this limited body form and moved away from the overall presence. For the first time in years that I can remember this happening. And there's something in this that's a lesson too. Not just for me, but for you. It's about attention. Because your attention is riveted to your identity as a person and a body and a history and a story and everything else going on in the dream. How are you going to accomplish this? How are you going to overcome this? How are you going to, improve your life in this way? How are you going to, escape making it worse in this way? How are you going to prevent dying and things like that, which is inevitable? Of course you're going to die, but the ego thinks that it can prevent that from happening and that it should prevent that from happening. It's all mixed up. It's all totally confused. It has everything backwards and upside down. That's the dream. None of it is true. None of it has any relevance to truth whatsoever. And because attention is on this, just like it was for me, come to the coughing. You know, this experience of coughing and the pain in the lungs. It became so focused on that, so drawn to that, that it missed the reality of life. It missed the reality of what I am. It didn't re-identify with the body as it does for most people. It didn't re-identify there. It just was like in a limbo because it wasn't identifying with the body, but its attention was not on its true being, on its true nature. And that's why we don't wake up. Because our attention is on this dream. Our attention is on this dream of I, me, mine. Me. And it's so focused on this that it cannot learn from life. It cannot see what life is always teaching us in every single moment. Sickness, health, success, failure, it makes no difference. Whatever it is, life is teaching us the important lesson of reality. I mean, one of the things that a physical illness can teach you, or chronic pain can teach you, is do you really want to identify with this body as you? Why? Why do you want to keep doing that? You know when your body is sick, it's an indication that at some point it's going to die. Why do you want to identify with that? Does that make any sense? Is that to your benefit at all in any possible way? In any dream? It's not. Why do you want to do that? As long as you do, your attention is going to be so focused on that that you're not going to be aware of what is. So focused on the survival of this dream, the continuation of this dream, that your attention cannot go to life as it is, and you can't learn from life. You can't learn from this present moment. So that's some of what I learned. Not a wasted 4 days of suffering. I can't even say suffering, you know, because since I don't identify with the body, whether it lives or dies is irrelevant to me. You know, when it was at its worst peak, like death would have been extremely welcome to me, and I would have been grateful for that. I've been there before. I know what that's like. It's not bad. It's freedom. Likewise, dying to this dream is wonderful. It's not, we think it's bad, we think it's frightening, and that's why we cling to it and hold on and don't allow ourselves to experience what is life. And I hope you feel, from me, the wonder and beauty and joy and love of this, of just being, of just life itself, without the dream and illusion of a separate I. Just being itself, just life itself, just this unlimited, prevailing, all existence, the totality of all that is your very nature. Until you experience this, you cannot know what you're running away from. Because if you did, you wouldn't run. You would embrace it completely. Of course you would. but all you have is an idea of what it is. But maybe deep within your heart, you can feel the truth of this. The truth of what is. The truth of something far beyond any of your thoughts, your beliefs, your conditioned thoughts, including all your spiritual beliefs. These are only pointing you in a direction. And what is the direction? Because you have to let go. None of these books and sutras and teachings, mine or anyone else's, can do the letting go for you. Only you can let go. Only you can die. People that I talk to that are in the process of dying, if they're not awake, they're afraid of dying. And they say, I don't want to die alone. I want my family and friends around me when I die. But you have to die alone. No one can die for you. Not even your spiritual teacher or guru can die for you. Not your most beloved family members. They cannot die for you. Dying is your job. Letting go is your job. Only you can do this. And this deep, complete surrender means letting go of you. Letting go of the you who surrenders. Letting it all go. And in the moment that you do that, you realize your true self. Your true being. What has always, always been here. Thank you, my friends. I'm running out of gas. And the body is like a car that's, running on fumes. Water is not enough to keep it going forever. At some point, it's going to need some food or something. But the pure energy of being is not limited to the body at all. And that was what was unpleasant, is my attention moved away from this. It just shifted, that's all. It shifted away. It's not that this wasn't always here. It's not that the energy of this wasn't always here. Of course it was. Of course it is. But my attention wasn't on it, so I no longer felt it. I no longer had the direct experience of it, the conscious direct experience of it. And for most of you, when you have not tasted this awakening, this complete freedom, that's true of your life. It's true of your life. It's always here. You just haven't tasted it yet. And there's been moments when you have, without realizing it. As I said before, anytime you're truly, truly happy, and in this happiness, you realize this is happiness for no reason at all. You can blame other things for making you happy, but if you really focus on the happy, you realize that this happiness is here all the time. It always was here before this event happened, before this wonderful person came into your life, before any of that. It was always here. If you really look, if you really pay attention, you'll see this. It's just as you fall in love. When you fall in love, if you really look at the experience of love, deeply look at the experience of love, you have to realize that it was always here before you ever met this person. It's part of your nature. It's a profound realization. And if you realize this, it will help you surrender to this. Any sign that this is wonderful, any sign that it's okay to let go, to surrender, will overcome the conditioning that says it's not. Because surrender means death, doesn't it? I mean, that's the ultimate surrender. And so our conditioning says, don't do that. Do everything you can to avoid doing it. And in all true spiritual teaching, it says just the opposite. It says, if you want to truly live, you have to die. If you want to truly live, you have to let go of this dream. You have to let the dream go. And this is how you die to eternal life. Die into eternal life. Because your nature is eternal. You're only letting go of a dream. A very, very limited dream. A limited dream of me in my life. Me in this body. Such a small way to live. And yet so many people do. But perhaps not you.